Do you feel it's too late to start doing sport? Or you started and it's just not working out? You have some obstacles? Today I'm gonna talk with Kelly, and Kelly has started after her 40s. She was not in a good shape, and she really wants to support with her story for people who think that once they hit 40 plus, their life as they knew it is over. She loves to inspire and challenge people to fight for their health. And she actually wrote a very interesting book that I invite you to read as well. It's called Lessons from the Obstacle Course: Five Strategies to Conquer the Muddy Fields of Life. She will explain us a little bit what are the strategies that she delineated in her book, and she will definitely help you see things from a different perspective. I'm EGR, and this is Adulthlete. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
I am good, Lena. How are you doing?
I'm really good today. I am very happy to have you here on Adulthlete. You started a little bit later in life, you told me, being a sport enthusiast. So it's really interesting for me and for our listeners today to really dig a little bit deeper on what was your experience, how you felt before and after starting with sport, and the way how you went through. So tell us a little bit, how did you came to the decision to start with sport, first of all?
Okay, gotcha. Well, it fell into it, honestly, and I'm not really like, I wouldn't say I'm like a podium person from by any stretch of the imagination, but my husband and I have been doing obstacle course challenges now for over 10 years. Or about 10 years now. It'll be 10 for him next year, 10 for me this year. But we really fell into it after he had brain surgery in 2014. He had a pineal gland cystic mass sitting in the middle of his brain, causing all sorts of havoc. And we would come to find out that it almost killed him. But the other thing that was very interesting too, that we've recently found out, is he has a degenerative muscular autoimmune issue called Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome, LIMS for short. Anyway, we were in our early 40s when he had, or mid 40s, because I think 14, he would have been about 40, no, almost 46. I think it was 45 when he had his brain surgery. So, and I'm 2 years younger, so I was 44 or 40, 43 about that time. Anyway, young kids, our kids were probably 7 and 9 at the time, because we had kids later in life in our mid 30s. And just, we've always done, like, my husband played football and played lacrosse and was always very active. He was a Marine. So, very active in that respect. But you kind of lose that a little bit as you get older, especially as you're raising kids and going through all of that fun stuff and working. We both worked full time. Our kids were just starting to get into lacrosse, which was a travel team. So, all the kind of stuff that pulls on you, right? And I never played sports, never actually, there was just something that was not available to me when I was younger for family reasons. So, but I did run, did 5Ks and those kind of things. And I always enjoyed working out. So I always like went to the gym and that kind of stuff, and always had to kind of find a way to put that into life, because that was I enjoyed being active. We enjoyed hiking, all that kind of stuff, outdoors in that respect. When my husband had brain surgery, we kind of like hit this brick wall, because at the same time I found out that I had a lower back degenerative disc issue. And as he was recovering from brain surgery, I had a good group of friends from work who asked me, say, "Hey, Kelly, come do this warrior dash with us." And I was like, "Sure, that sounds like fun. Let's do it." Because they were all excited when they were telling me. And then I kind of stopped and went, "Oh, wait a minute. what's a warrior dash? Like, what did I just sign up for? It's like I just jump right in, like, okay, wait, what did I just do? Anyway, it was this really, really, this was, they said, oh, it's a 5K, you do some obstacles. And at the point in time, this is like, 2014, Spartan was really starting to come online. People were starting to talk a little bit more about that, about Tough Mudder, and about a few of these other obstacle course challenges. And I thought, okay, well, hey, this sounds like fun. Let's give this a try. And so it was in the spring of 2014. My husband could not participate because, of course, he was recovering from brain surgery. And our two little kids came out with us. They could not participate, but they could at least, they participated as a spectator and as fun and all that kind of stuff. And as we were finishing the race up, I had so much fun. Okay, to my friends, they neglected to tell me how muddy the race was. Like literally and I'm sure they probably did that on purpose, but literally the last obstacle, and they don't do Warrior Dash anymore, but the last obstacle, you actually crawl through a mud pit, and you have to crawl
Wow.
like you're crawling on, like you're swimming through this mud pit underneath barbed wire. And I'm going, but it was like the funnest thing I think I have ever done. And the atmosphere at the Warrior Dash was so much fun. I'm kind of sad that they don't have the race anymore, because it was just like kind of a big party, and it was just a good time. But my husband watched the whole thing, and of course, true to his like Marine Corps, self.
That's what they do.
He goes, this looks like fun. I want to do this. And so it really, really kind of helped. I think it re-energized us at a point in our life where, we were just kind of trudging through life. Like, again, we had young kids. We were, really pushing hard for our careers. We, working a lot of long hours, also running around with our children. And, you just kind of hit this wall like, I'm in my 40s. Right. Life just kind of hits you. And I think the biggest thing about it was it gave us a little spark and something to strive for. And so he set it into his mind that he's like, okay, I want to do one of those races, but let's find something that's maybe, not as muddy, a little bit more challenging. Because the Warrior Dash wasn't bad, but it was just, it was more getting through the factor than it was the strength factor for the most, and some of the heights and things like that, if you're concerned about heights. So we set our sights on this race called Conquer the Gauntlet, which was in our local area in the Arkansas, Oklahoma area where we lived at the time, and signed up for a race in September of 2015. So that was, we just did another Conquer the Gauntlet. So I think we've done 7 of those, and we've also then signed up for Spartan races. And in fact, we just 2 weekends ago had the Spartan Trifecta weekend where you did 3 races in 1 weekend. I think my bruises are finally fading.
Yeah.
But, I think when you ask about athlete, like I was kind of like I want to say maybe a little bit more, like kind of more of I wouldn't even say a weekend warrior. I was just kind of a casual athlete, if there's such a thing. Like, I enjoyed running every once in a while. Like I did a lot of running, loved trail running, but I've done 1 marathon. I will never do another marathon in my life again because the training for that really sucked. But, we were just more casual on the side. I never did a lot of strength training. I was always cardio, all that kind of stuff. And I just in my late 40s found strength training because I wanted to be stronger to overcome, to get over some of these obstacles, to actually be able to do it. And then as I've come to understand and study more, it's really important for us as we get older to have strength training. It's better for our bones. It's better for our longevity. It's better for our health. All of these things that are so important, adding resistance training to your life is really, really important from your standpoint of your overall health and your overall longevity aspects. So now I'm like, not only for that reason, but just because I really enjoy it, I am total, like I do a lot of weightlifting, and now I've also incorporated mobility training into my training perspective, because you kind of have to be able to lift your leg up and do funky things when you're going through these obstacle courses. So, it's just encouraged me to be more cognizant of my health and my body as I'm getting older. And each time I go out there to do these obstacles, it's so much fun to see I'm running circles around these 20-year-old and 30-year-olds out there, and I'm in my 50s. So that is also really very empowering and just encouraging as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, I would say. I have never tried the obstacle, but I checked it online. It
Yeah.
looks like fun. It
Oh,
looks
it's
like
totally fun.
you're a kid, You're a
Yeah.
kid back
Yeah.
in the
You,
time.
yeah. You get to be a kid again. I'm like, you do. Like, and I think, honestly, too, I think some adults just get to be stick in the muds. Like, you have to you've got to embrace that kid side of you every once in a while, and I think it's fun to be able to go out there and do that. It's very healthy for you to go out there and do that. I think even stats have said, and I'm sure someone can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but like you can even add like 7 years to your life just by having a healthier, happier attitude, by laughing and smiling and joking around. Like, don't get me wrong, there are parts when these races you're in the middle of them, or towards, like, I would almost say like the 2/3 the way through, and you're like, oh my gosh, will this thing ever end? But and like, why did I sign up for this thing again? What am I doing out here? But then you get through the finish line and you're like, okay, I'm ready to sign up again. Like, it's like life, right? You trudge
Of
through half of them,
course.
you're like, wait a minute, I don't want this to end. Like, let's go again.
Yeah, when you're over, you feel like you could run another 20 kilometers or you could do whatever, but only at the end, just
Yeah.
before the end, you just want to die.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, let's, all right, I'm not done yet. I'm not done. That could be a great metaphor for life as well, too. Honestly, it's like you're like, I'm not done yet. I want to do more and I can do more.
Exactly, exactly. So, okay. And so your motivation was primarily coming from the fact that you felt a little bit stuck in your life and super busy, and you had all those health issues. But was there something else that gave up, so that you try to not give up yourself, and just go on and try something new?
Yeah, there was a lot with that as well too. Like I said, like part of the reason why I added strength training was there were a lot of obstacles that I couldn't get over. So, and
Mm,
that was because I didn't have the strength to get over them. And there's strength and there's fear factor. So let's talk about strength first. So the strength part of it was, all right, I'm not scared of this obstacle, but I need more strength to get over it. Like, I'm not
yeah.
able to pull myself the way I didn't have the physical ability to do it. I had the desire to do it, but I needed more in order to be able to do it. So that really helped drive a lot of the strength training at home and really getting into that and pumping some iron and all that good stuff, right? And then the other part of it through these obstacles, and I think part of the reason why I keep going back is like each time I get over another obstacle, I get over something that I've not gotten over before because it either scared me, I didn't trust myself. Like there's this, or I didn't have the right technique. And so I didn't trust
Hmm.
myself and it scared me. And that's what I'm also kind of like, I keep learning. Like tell you, I learn every single time I go there. Like there is not a course that I don't go through where I didn't come away with something that I can apply to my life, off the course from that perspective. So, there's and I can't remember what it's called, but it's this thing you have to pull up and crawl over, and it's leaning backwards. And
Wow.
I always try
It's
to
like an
figure out like I had
overhang.
to, yeah, I was trying to get my way over like the guys do. But here's the thing with a lot of guys, and still strength is an issue and coordination a little bit as well. But guys' center of mass and gravity is in their shoulders. So if they can just get their shoulders over, it's a little bit easier for them to get the rest of their body over. Well, for women, our center of mass and our gravitation pull is in our hips. So we've got it, doing those muscles up like the guys is not as easy for us as it is for them. Although there are some women that make it extremely easy, look extremely easy. I'm like, okay, I admire you, and I'm never going to be able to do that, but that's okay. So part of it was also kept going back and learning techniques in order to be able to go over that. But the the thing that keeps me going back and that I keep fighting for is the fact that each time I go over, I conquer a fear, like either a
Hmm.
fear of heights or a fear of I'm going to fall, I'm not holding on tight enough, or there's something going on that I don't feel comfortable with. And when I get through that uncomfortableness and the fear, I realize I'm like, okay, there's a lot more things I can do. And I just remind myself of that when I'm in my job, or because I do sales, uh, that, you know what, there's a lot of uncomfortableness and that you hit when, you're putting yourself out there per se, that I just remind myself, okay, you know what? If you can do this here on the field, you can do this in life as well too. Like, just pull on some of those aspects that I don't care how I look. I don't care how silly it is that I'm swinging a leg or I'm doing something odd on the course. People really don't care. I'm really the only one that cares. So I just really need to kind of understand, like, and that's a good aspect for a lot of people. It's like, most people really aren't paying attention. As much as we think that they're
Hmm.
paying attention, most people are really not paying attention. So that fear that you think of, that looking bad or whatever, is really more in your head and not really in what's going on around you from that perspective. So those are things that I
Yeah.
kind of pulled through. And then also just determination to get through a lot of things. There's a few obstacles that took me several courses until I can finally get over them. And that was kind of some aha moments as well, too, for me.
But so do you have I didn't know there were courses. Do you follow a course before to learn how to do a race, a obstacle race, or is it like some group that you just found that they train for this kind of races?
So there are lots of gyms out there that will put together training groups, and where you can really pull with a few other people and learn the techniques and have the motivation and the accountability and everything like that in order to train for these races. And you just have to look them up and kind of see where they're at, depending on where you are in the world, basically. For me, I've trained at home. I've not really
Okay.
pulled on any group or organization. I've been very self motivated in that respect. But I know that about this is where, like, really know who you are. Like, if from that perspective, I know me. In fact, my husband and I were just talking about this morning. Um, I know me well enough that I need to have, like, okay, I have to have an event, and that's my accountability. Like, knowing that I have
Hmm.
an event out there, I will train for that event. If I don't have it on the calendar, I'm not as diligent with my training and with my exercise as I know I should be. But if I know I have something coming up, then I'm really good about sticking to my routine and keeping going and keeping strength going. I'm better now because it's become more of a habit because I've done that. So now it's more of a habit, and that's more of the planning side of things. So know yourself. What works for you? Know, is it getting with a group of people that's going to really help you stick to it and teach you? Like, I do need to go into a gym and have somebody teach me how to climb rope. I'd still like to learn how to climb rope. Have not learned that technique well. My husband's told me in theory because he can do it, but I've not practiced it and I don't have a place to do that. So for that kind of thing, find your tribe, find the thing that's going to motivate you and keep you accountable and keep you sticking with it and help you learn those little tricks and techniques. I've kind of learned on the fly, uh, and watching other people on the course. And now on the course, as we go through, because I've done them enough, I start giving hints to other people on the course. So there was one young woman that we kept running into, and I kept saying, well, she asked me initially, how did you get over? And I was coaching her how to get over. And then we kept running into her. And I'm like, okay, do you want another idea? And she's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you another idea. Because otherwise I'm very good at sometimes giving ideas and people are like, shut up, Kelly. But that's also a great thing too, as well. Like, if you're on the course and you're watching people go through things, kind of watch them, see how they're doing it. You'll see the people who've done this before and what they're doing. And you'll start to learn some of those techniques as well too, which is what I've done, is by learning by observation.
But like, just from my understanding, when you So you sign up for a race, and do you know which kind of obstacles will you have in advance?
We've done them enough that we know we are very familiar with a lot of the obstacles, but you can go on the websites and they'll tell you what the obstacles are that you're going through or what could potentially
Okay.
be on that course for
Mm,
that race. Now, they don't necessarily always have all of them on there, but they usually have all the obstacles that are potentially, could potentially be on the race. So you can watch that and you can go out to, I mean, YouTube or Rumble and probably look up a whole bunch of videos as well too of people going over the obstacles and kind of watch their technique and how they do things so that you're a little bit more aware come race day. So it's not too much of a shock factor. But, and then of course, once you start doing races, if you do them a few times, you start recognizing some of them and learning how to get through them.
yeah, I think race day, when it's the first time, it's always a little bit troublesome. I remember the first time I participated in a triathlon, and I was just doing one part of the triathlon. I mean, I was not doing it
Mm-hmm.
all. I was so nervous, and mainly because of the rules and things I should take care, And in that moment, I was just worried about doing it. But all the rules and things, like it's not like going for a run by yourself on Sunday morning. It's
Right.
really like a different setup. So I think race day, it's really a different story when you're not used to it.
It really is. A race day is a different story for everything. Like for the first few times that you go out, you're like, okay, this is all brand new. I mean, it's like starting anything new. Anything you start new, there's always that little, it's kind of like that hump to get over. You don't know what to expect. It is something brand new. So you're testing some new muscles, whether it brain or physical or whatever. And a lot of it's brain, a lot of it's mental, until you kind of get through that standpoint. So it's being able to stick through that, and a race day is you kind of have to, like, you're not exactly going to walk away from the gate. I mean,
Oh
unless you're really,
yeah.
really fearful, you're kind of stuck there. So you kind of are forced to go through it, which is not a bad thing, really. And like, if you think about it, that's something that you can implement in life as well, too, is that race day mentality. When you sign up and you're set to do something, it's like commit and don't let yourself back up. Act like you are at the starting line and like you have no choice. You have to go through this. And so that, you're unsure, you're nervous, but you're gonna get through it. You're gonna make it happen, and you're gonna maybe not do so well, but that's okay because the next time you do that, you sign up for that next race, next you set out to do that next thing. You're like, okay, I kind of get this a little bit. I got a little bit more of these. I understand this a little bit more. I'm a little still nervous, but I made it through this last one. I can do this one. And then things start become familiar for you and it starts getting easier and easier. And I think that's really about why doing multiple races and not just doing one obstacle course, not just doing one race, I think is really beneficial for everybody because it kind of like ingrains that little eye familiarity muscle. And I'm sure there's some sort of technology or technical term for that. But I mean, it just gets you through it. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with anything in life.
I guess at some point, what happens is like when you hit that first races, like at least two, three races, then you kind of get the gist of it. And then you can actually focus on different things like your performance.
Yeah.
And then you see, I would say, the real results from whatever you're trying to do. But the first times, yes, it takes a little bit of time to get comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But that, as you said, you start to able to, once you get through that uncomfortable, now you get to start focusing on the things that are going to improve your race or improve whatever it is you're doing. You just have to break through that first uncomfortable nah, part of it.
Yeah. And you actually wrote a book about how you took the experiences you got from sport into life.
Yes.
So it was really interesting to see, like, because I mean, the naming obstacle races, it's really about life. You cannot really escape from that. So
You
it sounds a
can't.
lot like that.
Well, no, and you know what? And you really can't. I mean, if you think about it, life is just one gigantic obstacle course. I mean, it really is. Everything you do there's going to be some sort of obstacle, and it might be something you can just step over. It might be a puddle, but it could be a huge issue. But there are ways that no matter what, those obstacles are supposed to be there. So there are ways for you to either get through it, get around it, or walk away from it. Is really, I think, kind of like our three options, right? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, right now, I think people are choosing more and more to walk away instead of work through it or work their way around it. And I think that's sad because there's so much growth that happens when you take on an obstacle with the fact that, okay, this is a challenge. This might suck. It might really be a really awful challenge. Like, getting through Frank's brain surgery, that wasn't fun, but it was a challenge and we were able to make it through. There's also a lot of people have health challenges and, uh, marital challenges, romance challenges, kids challenges. There's nothing in life that you can't find a way to make through, or at least find a way to handle it or come to peace with it or work with it, um, in some way, shape, or form. I just think too many people, and I don't know whether it's just a factor of where we are in our society these days, but too many people just kind of throw their hands up and say, oh, I'm done. I'm not going to try it.
Mhm.
And I think that hurts us overall, just individually and as a society.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's also like, I'd say, of course, new generations have a different approach. I was just watching like what's called this series on the Queen. I
Oh,
forgot the name.
yeah, I haven't watched it, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
The Crown. The Crown.
Crown.
That's the
Yeah.
title. Yes. And I mean, the Queen at some point she had four children. I think
Hmm.
two males and two girls. But when they grew up, everybody married, and then basically all of them divorced. And at some point, she's like telling to her husband, like, when I was young, when we were young, like divorce was not the solution; it was the problem. And now it's the reverse, and
Now
it
it's
was
the,
like
yeah,
reframing, completely reframing.
and I think that is, I don't know what the main or why. Um, my husband and I have been together 31 years, been married 31 years, been together 34, something like that. We met in 1990. I will tell you, there have been definitely rough patches. It's not been like a honeymoon the whole time. Um, and there have been times where we've grown apart. And there have been times where, things were very, very challenging. And I've told my daughter this the whole time, like, 90% of the time, I adore my husband. He's my best friend. He's my companion. We do so much stuff together. Like, he and I are out there on these obstacle courses together. Like, we do this as a team. And, we've parented, our kids are now 19 and 21. We've done really good I think we've done pretty good from a parenting perspective together. But there's 10% that drives me freaking nuts. And, and I know it's the same for me to him. Like, I'm sure 90% of the time he absolutely loves and adores me, but there's 10% I am sure I drive him, I would say, I want to say bat crap crazy. But, it's understanding that I'm not going to throw away what we have because there's 10% that drives me crazy. It's learning how to handle that 10% and put it in perspective. And I know I can't change him. He's who he is. And that's part of the reason why I fell in love with him. And it's one of the reasons why I stay with him. But there's part of him that I'm going, okay, dude, you're killing me here. Like, no, this is not going to work. But we learn to work and move through that. And it was when I came to that realization and not focus so much on the 10 that drives me crazy, but the 90% that I just absolutely love, that that in my mind, I was able to flip how our relationship was. And when I was able to flip how our relationship was, we had a much stronger and better relationship because it opened up the door to some communication that we had to have. We really had to talk through a few things. And now our relationship is stronger and healthier than it ever has been. So I don't know. I mean, I know there are definitely good reasons for why people get a divorce, but I also think there are reasons that people just give up on each other too quickly and they focus too
Yeah,
much
when
on the stuff
it's
that drives them nuts and not on the really good stuff.
Yeah, I guess like you really have to assess if it's just a 10% or 20, 30, or 50. Like, you know, that's like, of course, it is in your hands, right? That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Like the new generations, probably if you have an escape route, you definitely want to take that. The problem
right.
is like if you are not assessing it properly and in a mature way, then are you really making the right decision? That's the problem.
You know,
And of
yeah.
course, it's easier. It's easier.
Well, exactly. And I think you touched on something really that are you really assessing it? Like, and it could be easier, but you know, when we were going through our rough period, and now my parents are divorced, his parents are not, my parents are divorced. And so I know what that divorce life looks like. And so there was, I mean, because there was one point in time I was contemplating leaving. And I played through what is that going to look like for our family? What is that going to look like? Like I actually envisioned what would our Christmases and our Thanksgivings and all of that stuff look like? What would it look like if I saw him with another woman? Like I went through all of that in my head and I was like, I don't want that. That's not the life I want for me. That's not the life, but most importantly, that wasn't the life I wanted for my kids. So when I
Hmm.
came to that conclusion, I was like, okay, Kelly, what's really going on here? And that's when I was realizing I was focusing on the not the good stuff, but I was focusing on bad stuff, not the good stuff. And there's a couple of people have said a couple of things too. And if you feel like you're going through a troubling time with your relationship with your spouse or whatever, do a challenge. Do this, and this is not. I heard this, I think, from Darren Hardy, and I'm sure he heard it from someone else. But either way, like let's share the good stuff, right? Um, write down in a book, a gratitude book, everything. Focus
Hmm.
one day on something that you like about the person, and do that for you know a year or a few months, or at least start with a week and then go to a couple weeks, then go to a month, then go to a few months, and then start really focusing in on that. And if you can't see your way through that, then maybe there is something that needs to happen. But I think for most people, when you start focusing on the good stuff and not the bad stuff, you start realizing what you have.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's pretty much with any obstacle, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is relationship, work, whatever you're trying to do, and you're failing. And it's not just, not getting something that you have tried. I think it's also a blessing because I heard so many people saying, "Oh yeah, I wanted to be fill the blank," and then this person said at the beginning of my career, "Oh, you will never be that," and then
Yeah.
they became like very successful, very very successful.
Mm-hmm.
As in the end, you have to have failures in order to have successes. There's no
You
way around
do.
it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and also you said something there was really telling as well too, is that somebody told you that you couldn't do something. And knowing that, okay, there are always going to be naysayers in your life. There are always going to be people who do not support you, who look at you like, are you whacked out? What's going on with you? Like, what are you thinking? You know, um, if it's something that's deep in your heart and you're like, I can do this, I know I can do this, don't listen to them. Listen to you, listen to what you feel is important. Listen to, of course, you don't want to do anything that's going to hurt anyone, or, you don't want to like leave out all your friend, all your family behind or whatever, but for the most part though, I mean, you've got to listen to your inner soul and your intuition. That is, a lot of people say that your gut is really your first brain. And I think there's from a health perspective and from a mental perspective, it really is. um, listening to what your inner voice is telling you is really, really important. And we've talked about a good inner voice and a bad inner voice. But you know, too many times we are looking for that validation outside. It's like, oh, how many people liked my post? How many people did this? That's validating. And that can be helpful, but it can also be extremely harmful as well too, if that's all you lean on in order to be able to make the decisions that are really important to you in your life and to see yourself succeed at what it is you want to succeed at. Even if it's
Yeah,
a crazy idea,
absolutely.
you got to go for it. If
Yeah.
you really truly feel you can make it happen, you got to go for it.
Yeah, otherwise you will always ask yourself, would it
Yes.
have worked or
Yeah.
not if I did
Yeah.
it?
Exactly. You don't want to be on your deathbed later on going or later on in your life with all these regrets. It's sad. I'm kind of watching my father go through this right now. He's in his mid to late 80s, and there's a toll. Like, there is a really mental toll on him right now of the regrets he's had in life. And I'm watching
Wow.
that eat away at him. And, it's very sad. Um, but it's very telling, and it's a good lesson to me from that perspective to say, okay, what would I really regret? What's going to really eat at my soul if I don't
Hmm.
push forward no matter what people say, if I don't try this no matter what people say?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's a good lesson to watch someone close to you going through that. It's sad and it's painful to
Mhm.
watch it.
It is.
But you are like, well, there's a reason this is happening, and maybe I should really not do the same mistakes, learn from his mistake. And then it's actually a growth, generational growth.
Yeah, it is. You're no matter, you are
And
never too young to grow. Or too old to grow. You're never too old to grow. I think that's what I meant to say. But you're never too old to grow.
of course, you're never too young to learn, maybe. That's
Yeah, exactly. Keep a young mind.
uh, you talked about some strategies. Actually, in your book, you have 5 strategies. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote the book called Lessons from the Obstacle Course. I titled it Five Strategies to Get Through the Muddy Fields of Life, because we are in, like I said, one big obstacle course. It's recovery, discovery, persistency, creativity, and collaboration. So recovery really focuses on kind of like, what are you recovering from? What are those wounds that you have? What is it? It can be physical, could be mental, could be spiritual. There's a lot of stuff that is just identifying what's really been holding you back, or what is it that you really have to physically or mentally or spiritually, overcome. And then the other part of recovery that I talk about is actually allowing your body some rest and recovery time. We've unfortunately been healing. Coming back from some physical wounds, like, in the book I talk about, because it was my husband's brain surgery and giving time. And in the very first obstacle course that we went through, he actually started tearing his bicep. And we wouldn't find out about that until like a couple years later. But he really needed some recovery time in order to really heal his bicep from that injury. I tore my meniscus back in early August training. And so it was kind of recovering and training
Wow.
from that and giving yourself some time to do that. It is probably one of the most frustrating things to do sometime, is to actually pull back your training and let your body do its magical thing and recover. And, our bodies are so amazing that if we do give them if we do give this wonderful vessel that we live in every day the ability to be able to rest and recover, it can continue to do amazing things for us. So that's the other part of recovery. And there's a lot of studies that have done, Olympic studies that have been done, where I think it was on cyclers, who they actually rested more than they put in specific days of rest, and they improved their time significantly. So our bodies need that recharge part of it. So it's not just what are you overcoming and making a plan to overcome it through recovery. It's also giving your body that time and your mind and it could be a mental, you need to give some mental time, mental space between things. Like I always joke around this with my kids. So okay, any parent will know this. Your kids will drive you crazy as well too. It's not just your hubbies or your spouses; it's your kids as well. And I learned through this one. I think it was called an Empowering Parents program. It was a really great program. And in there, I learned instead of when my son, because we were going through a challenging time with our son, instead of just like reacting to his reaction, taking a step back and be like, okay, I cannot talk to you right now. I am not in a mental place to be able to have a good conversation. And this works for your spouses as well too. We're going to put this, we're going to table this. I'm going to walk away and we're going to come back to this. I'm going to cool down. I'm going to give myself a little time to recover here. And then we're going to come back and address this. So recovery is important in all kinds of aspects. And it really helps you reset your mind, reset you spiritually, reset you physically in order to be able to take on the next tasks that you need to take on. So that's recovery. Next one I talked about was persistency, knowing that sometimes you just have to have that grit. You just have to dig down deep and go for it and persist through it. I talked about that sometimes like there's a few obstacles where you have to carry really heavy things and you have to trudge through the woods. And it's really about finding a way to balance your load as you're walking through these, this trail, so to speak. But we do the same thing in life. A lot of us are carrying these really heavy burdens, and we have to figure out what is the best way for us to physically handle those burdens and take on those burdens as we move through things. So that's part of that persistency, is just kind of working through what is it you're carrying, and just knowing too, sometimes you just have to just grit it and go. Like there's just no other there's no other way to handle it. You just have to grit and go. Then discovery, I talk about how I discovered my strength on one obstacle. Like I discovered it was my fear that was holding me back. And it wasn't until like the third obstacle where my daughter was with us, because I couldn't get over this obstacle the first two times. And then it's this big thing called the Continental Divide. And it's this like almost 14-foot wall with a rope that you have to climb up and then get to the top and get yourself over. So I had a really hard time getting myself over. Yeah. And I was sitting there chicken winging it for the third time, and I didn't have anyone to pull me over. And I'm going, what the heck am I doing? Like, why do I have to get over this? What's my problem? What's holding, just all those negative things that we chatter in our brain. And I heard my daughter, who was 12 years old at the time, right down below me going, you got this, Mom. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get over this thing. Like, this is not about me anymore. This is about, she's watching me. She's counting on me. She needs me to be at the top so I can help her over. So it wasn't about me just getting over that dang obstacle. It was about getting over it so I can be there for her in all sorts of it. So it was like, that's where I found my strength to finally pull myself up and over that obstacle before I was about to give up on myself. So that was a really big part of discovery for me on that, and how important it is for me to show up as a parent, as a mom, especially for my daughter, and, and how I show up for my son. It's really, and people that you work with, for your family, for your friends, all that kind of stuff was really important. And I also talk about in discovery, we talked about some of the obstacles that you do need to walk around. And there are some obstacles in this course. I'm like, no, don't need to do them. I'm totally good. Like, I cannot do monkey bars to save my life. I do not know why. Can't do them. Just not something that I've ever, I would love to eventually be able to do them. But there's also another one called Pegatron, where you have to do that peg thing going across. I don't know if you've seen that in like some of those obstacle, like they do those challenges that you see on TV, and you see these people going across in these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks so freaking cool. Yeah, no, that is like the hardest thing to do. And I'm going, okay, yeah, you know what? Really don't want to figure out how to do that. I mean, I could train and could figure it out, but no, I'm good. Somebody else can do that for me. And I like in that too.
Can you skip the obstacle? Can you skip them?
Skip the obstacle. You can, like in some places, like in Spartan, if you can't do it, you've got to do like a penalty lap. But
Okay.
and every once in a while in Conquer the Gauntlet, if you have to skip that one, they have you do burpees. But for the most part, and that's the one that I will tell you, like they have a in Conquer the Gauntlet that people who do the oh gosh, they do the competitive, like they're competing for money. They have to wear a belt, and if you can't get through an obstacle, you drop your belt. Well, you should see the pile of belts at that obstacle because it is such a hard one for so many people to get through. Uh, but so the way I look at it, okay, I don't need to do that. And there's so many things in life that you kind of look at, you're like, okay, you're not giving up. Like I've tried it a few times. I'm like, this is just not something I really want to do, nor do I really care to do it, or do I have the ability to do it? But there's a lot of things in life that are the same way. Like one of the biggest thing that holds business owners back is they do everything. They don't delegate and give stuff to other people to do. They haven't recognized when it's really important. Like, you know what, this is not an important thing for me to do. I need to hire someone to do that. And that was a big aha moment for me when I was trying to put together my website. I'm like trying to save money and I'm trying to do it myself. And I realized I'm like, you know what? I am not going to have a really good website unless I handle a good web designer. Like it's just not going to happen because I don't have,
You have
it's not that I'm
to,
not smart enough. I should be going out and getting business. I shouldn't be working on building a
yes, the
website.
focus.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to
Where's your
focus on
focus?
your thing, not on designing something that makes no sense for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's how that plays to life. It's like, could I do it? Yes, eventually. Is that the best use of my time? No, it's not. So understanding that there are obstacles in life that you do need to walk around, but you do need to do that evaluation. Is this something I should be doing? Is this something I can be doing? Is this a best use of my time and money? Then yes and no. Like, what is that answer? And then if it's no, then you need to be like, okay, that's good. I'm good with that solution. I'm good with that answer. I'm going to walk around this obstacle. I'm going to hire someone else to do that. And I'm going to go on and I'm going to hit the next one. Because sometimes you have to save your strength and your energy for the next obstacle that you are going to hit, that you do have to get over. So that was kind of that's the big lesson during that discovery part of it, is really knowing what you need to take on and knowing what you don't need to take on and being okay with both decisions.
Yeah. So
So
then what do we have after discovery?
we have creativity and then collaboration. Creativity really came about where like there were a few obstacles that we discovered, okay, you know what, I'm not going to be able to get over it the way other people get over it. And it's one that's I'm hanging upside down on the book. This was an obstacle where you're supposed to go over with your hands, like if you're in the competitive range. And they don't even have this obstacle, unfortunately, in Conquer the Gauntlet anymore. But it's over a big pit, and it looks like if you've ever built a deck, it's like a bunch of joists going across. And you have to, if you're in the competitive round, you just have to go hand over hand and go over it. Well, I looked at that like, oh, there's no way in hell I'm doing that. That's not going to happen. I'm going to so end up in the water. And so I saw a few ladies who were like kind of crawling over it. They had their legs over and they were holding
That's what I
onto it.
thought.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I can do that. Like, I can do that. That's not a problem. So, being, observing what's going on around you. How is somebody doing something? And looking at going, not everything has to be done the way someone else has done it. And understanding that that's a key thing to being creative is like, okay, I can figure out another way to do it that is something that I can do. And you can see that in how you market, you can see that in how you business development. What's something that's going to be that you're going to be successful at pulling on your strengths in order to be able to get through whatever that obstacle is you need to get through. And then there was a couple obstacles where they have these ropes, wires that go across. One you walk on, and the other one you're supposed to kind of hold on to, but it was really loose at the one you're supposed to hold on to. And I looked at it and went, well, what if we just pull on it? And if I pulled on it and pulled it taut, so it was taut enough for my husband to get across, then he can go on the other side and pull it taut, and it's taut, and it gave us the balance that we needed to get over. And I just kind of looked at the they always have volunteers sitting at most of these obstacles to make sure we don't really do anything stupid. And if somebody gets hurt, they can call someone. And I looked at him. I'm like, do you mind if I pull this? And he's like, whatever. Like, they don't care. So we pulled it. We both got across, didn't end up in the water. That was great. And as I looked back over my shoulder, I saw people doing the same thing after us. So you never know when you come up with something creative to do, who's watching and, who you might be able to impact by looking at something differently and be like, huh, yeah, no, I'm going to do it this way. Or I'm going to, maybe it's not in the rule book, but I'm going to ask, because most people, a lot of times, it's just not written in the rule book. Nobody's really thought about it. So you might as well do it.
You
And then
auto
the last,
censor yourself.
yeah, don't censor yourself. Yeah, exactly. Don't censor yourselves, and don't be afraid of how you look. Like, there's been some obstacles I've gotten over. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so not like that. I look like an idiot getting over that. Like, that was not graceful by any means, any shape of the imagination. And I was like, but I got over it. So again, know that there's a lot of things you're going to go in life that you're going to look like an absolute fool. Like, it's just, who cares? Just do it, get through it, and learn to laugh at yourself. Oh my gosh. Like I said, we tend to, especially as we get older, we tend to be, I think we go through this phase where we're really like, oh, and kind of stick in the mud kind of things. And then we get a little bit older and we're like, oh, that's kind of funny. And we learn to laugh through our mistakes, and we learn to laugh through our tries because we're at least trying. And we can see the humor in what is going on in life, and knowing that, okay, yeah, sometimes it doesn't quite go the way you want it to go, but you know what? I got through it. So that's all that really matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and
So
then the
that
last one
is
is,
the last.
the last is collaboration. And it really just means that, you know what? We are all on this planet together. And I think that one's become my most favorite one because, when we go to these races, everybody's just a big family. Like, there is, we were just at this, like I said, this trifecta weekend, and we ran into some guy in the Spartan Plus tent, and we just started talking, and then we ended up seeing him on the course, and we ended up running half the course with him because he was there running by himself. And so we helped him get over a few things, and we all kind of just kumbaya together. And that's just that's the whole spirit of all of these obstacle courses. There's only been one instance where I've ran into somebody who did not reach out to help. And believe me, I was about ready to give these boys a piece of my mind because they didn't help my daughter. It really made me mad. But everybody goes out there knowing that this is going to suck at some point in time, that we're all pushing ourselves. We're all challenging ourselves. We all need a helping hand. And there is really, like I said, except for one instance where I've been on these courses, rarely ever a time where somebody doesn't say, hey, can I help you? Or give you a little piece of advice, or do something other, or cheer you on, or something in that respect. That is one of the beauties of these races. And my thought in writing that chapter was, why aren't we like that when we get off the field? Why aren't we like that in normal life? Why don't we hold doors for people? Why don't we be cognizant that you are not the only person on this planet, that there are others with you, that what you do impacts others, positive or negative? And what kind of impact do you want to make on people? Do you want to make a positive impact, or do you want to be a negative impact? And that means being self-aware and being aware of your surroundings. Now, are you going to get it all the time? No, there are plenty of times I've done stupid things on the highway, but you know what? For the most part, it's just recognizing that we are stronger together. And I mentioned earlier, I've always been in sales, and I will tell you, I'm always stronger when I go with someone else, and we're promoting our product or our service or whatever in that respect, because we learn to balance each other, and we learn to lean on each other's strength. And it's also just more enjoyable going with people and doing things with people. So that's the last one. And then of course you can't forget the bling. You got to have the last one is the bling. One of the biggest reasons I will not sign up for a race unless I get some bling. Like, I want something for my wall. It's the silliest thing. But it's the fact that you can look at that later on and be like, yeah, oh yeah, that's awesome. I did that. It's that, but also knowing too that it's not just the bling at the end of the race that you get. It's the little exciting things that reward yourself with throughout the process. Like a little pat on the back, or maybe a bubble bath, or whatever when you're going through life. Reward yourself a little bit around the way, because you can't just go one after another after another. There's truly this dopamine effect. There's a really good book called
Mhm.
Dopamine Nation that explains that a lot. But it really is, it helps you balance out. We need that dopamine hit, because that does balance out our hormones, and it balance out our neurology. And I know there's more technical terms than that than I am explaining right now, but go get the book. It's really good.
Dopamine Nation. That's the title.
Dopamine Nation. That's a good one. And then Andrew Huberman Lab. Does a lot of really great. If you listen to
Ah.
podcasts, he's a fantastic podcaster about that as well too. And then there's another Andy Gilpin, I think. He does a lot. He does a lot of stuff on the neurology. Those are really great. If you're
Mhm.
curious about it, those are two really good people to listen to.
Yeah, Andrew Huberman Lab. That's something I used to listen to once in a while, so I can
Yeah,
second that as well. Definitely,
yeah.
but
They're long. Oh,
um,
they're long.
Dopamine Nation. I think I already saw the book somewhere, but I have not read it. Definitely, I will put it into my list now.
It's
Sounds like
definitely an
fun.
interesting one. It kind of explains it's like she puts it as like a seesaw, kind of, when your dopamine is high, but it goes low, and you don't want like these major seesaws, but trying to keep them
Hmm.
like a little bit more an even keel is
Balanced.
much healthier for you in the long run. That's why reward yourself as you go along, but still go get those big ones at the end. When you have a big thing that you get, celebrate. It's good. That's why
That's
at the end
right.
of
That's
races, we're
right.
like, yeah, let's go do this again. You're so high. I'm like,
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. You're high. That's the
yeah.
reason. So when we were talking the first time, you gave me a fantastic idea. I just we have to spread it right now because this is an
Okay.
amazing thing. You were talking about, of course, everybody has negative thoughts. It's I don't think there's anybody on this planet who has no negative thoughts. The thing is, the way how the technique that you use for dealing with it, it's very interesting and I think also very useful. Right now, I'm using it since some time, a couple of months since you
Oh,
told me.
okay.
And maybe you can explain a little bit what is this? How do you deal with the negatives?
Well, I had a friend of mine told me about this at one point in time, and I loved it. I'm like, oh, I am so using this. So same thing. Like, let's just pass the good stuff, right? Um, and we have this little negative chatter in our brain, and a lot of times people, what they'll tell you is like, okay, would you say that to a friend? And I think the way that I've been able to kind of look at that, and when after my friend told me this, I've given that person a name, and her name is Margaret. And when Margaret starts saying really nasty things to me and starts talking like, oh, or negative things, or things that are like, oh, are you sure you really want to be doing that? Or you can't do that, or whatever, all these things that you would normally not say to a friend, I tell her to go sit in a corner. I'm like, all right, you're done. I'm done listening to you. Again, this is my weird warped sense of humor as well, too. So, but I'm like, you're done. I'm not listening to you anymore. You go sit in that corner over there because I don't want to talk to you. And I pull on some other things. I'm like, okay, I recognize it's, I think partly, and again, I am not a scientist or a neurologist or anything like that, but the only thing I can guess on the reason why this works for me is that I'm recognizing that I'm talking negative. I'm recognizing that I
Hmm.
have these negative thoughts come in. And so I'm giving it a kind of like I'm channeling it to a person or a thing. To me, it's a person. And I'm telling her, I'm done with you. Like, I hear what you're saying. I don't like what you're saying. I really wouldn't be saying that to anyone. So you need to go sit in a corner, and I don't want to talk to you for a while. And I think that's just been a way for me to be able to kind of rationalize and understand, okay, what am I telling myself right now? So, but yeah, it works. She's been pretty good these days, but every once in a while she decides to pop back in. I'm like, nope, not having any of you. So tell her to go back. What have you found about it since we had that conversation? What have you found that you've liked that's helped you?
Who is it? Yeah, so mine it's called Claire. And
Okay.
yeah, she's pretty nasty. She was here uh, very often, I have to say, recently. But
Sometimes they visit way too much than they need to.
she should be away a little bit more. I will
Yeah.
send her for holidays, you know. No,
There you
but
go. Send her
jokes
packing.
apart. Yes, you're packing, you're gone now. I think, as you said, self awareness. You are giving, you know, the personification of the thoughts, and like distancing yourself. This is
Yeah.
not me. This is someone else. And absolutely, like I would never say such things to a friend or to another human being. And then I say those things to myself. To myself, it's fine. I can trash myself so much, but I would never do it that way with someone else. So it's very eye opening to think about it as a person, someone who is not you, and ends that should be shut down
Yeah.
and it's
It's
over.
kind of, it's like recognizing it and saying, okay, this isn't serving me right now. So this person needs to go away.
Exactly, exactly.
Good. So
But
when you, yeah,
that's a great psychological trick. Absolutely good.
I have no science behind this. This is just one girlfriend to another who's passed it along. I'm like, you know what? That's worked.
But you know, sometimes you know how cultures and traditions they go on and on and on since centuries, and then nobody knew because there was no scientific methodology. But then at some point we got the science backing it and like, oh yeah, meditation actually works, so you should do it. And then everybody's doing it, and then like there were people doing it since centuries, and someone did
Right.
not believe, they thought it's something esoteric. I can remember my mother when I was young, she, she used to tell me that don't do yoga. You know, yoga was
Oh, really?
something. Yeah, yeah, definitely. There was something esoteric behind it, and that's just ignorance. You know, like she was very
Yeah.
religious. She is very religious. So of course, it was so different, and it comes from India. They have a bunch of deities. Definitely not
Oh,
labeling.
gotcha.
You know.
Yeah. Yep. It's like it's like trying to peel back the reasoning behind something. Like there's a really great fable about how there's a family that always, whenever they cook their ham for Christmas, they always cut a piece of it off or the butt off and cooked it that way. And they've done it for years, from grandma to mom to daughter, and they kept doing, kept cooking it this direction. And one day, the granddaughter, great granddaughter, whoever, finally asked, like, why do we cut the butt off? And she asked the grandmother who started this whole tradition. And she's like, well, because I had a small oven, I had to cut it so I could fit it in the oven. There was no other reason to do so than to fit the ham in the oven. Like it served no purpose other than that. And so they stopped cutting the butt off the ham. But I mean, it's the whole thing that exactly what you said is a lot of times we keep doing things just because, others have done it or it's been passed on or whatever, but we've never stopped to question why. And I think that's one of the beauties of what we're doing now. And you can say this in all aspects, whether it be health or spiritual or mental or political or whatever the case may be, we have to take a step back and actually analyze, okay, what's going on? We are very smart individuals. And unfortunately, I think sometimes we put our brain on a shelf and we've not stopped to really sit there and go, okay, well, wait a minute. I understand what you're telling me, but there's something telling me that there's something more to this and I need to understand what's going on. And we've got such great resources at our fingertips now that you've got the ability to go for it. So listen to that nagging little gut feeling like, okay, wait a minute, there's something more that I should be doing here. There's something more to this. Why? Like that is a wonderful word. Why is this the way it is? And get that answer. And I love seeing that now. We're having a kind of a health resurgence here in the States. And, we've got the most unhealthy population. It's just that there's no reason for it in that respect. But we finally have a lot of people who are asking the question, why? Why are we in the state that we are? Why do we do the things that we do? And start looking at some things, even though, like your mom was like, well, we just, there was some boogeyman kind of thing going on with the whole meditation kind of thing. And that was a religion thing that we don't want to follow. But there's a little bit more than just that. Like, if that's the only reason, then okay, well, what benefit can I get from doing meditation? Because there is a lot of benefit that you get from meditation. I have a hard time doing it, but when I can, I really enjoy it. But there's like, why do we eat the stuff we do? Why do we drink the stuff we do? Why are we not working out and walking? And there's just asking that question, why, and what's behind it, is so beneficial for you to get to the bottom of something and really make a more informed decision about the direction you want to go and you feel is the best way for you to go, for you, for your family, for anything.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot, having been grown up in the Mediterranean area, the style of nutrition that we have, and then I moved to North European country. Um, and then there are things that you just don't do in terms of the way how you cook, the amount of butter they put. Like, no, it's just like a no. And then you see that there are people who have grown up with this kind of habits, and you're like, oh my god, like, really? Like, I would eat junk food sometimes, and even my junk food, it's not even the level of those people, because, like, even though I'm eating junk, I'm still trained. I've been primed to eat healthy because of the nutrition culture that I had all around me. So I know some things are bad even if I'm doing it, but it's like just a very short time that I do that. But for some people it's quite normal, and that is,
Yeah.
as you said, widespread disease epidemics, that everybody is doing things in one way. Nobody questioned the habits just because my mother, grandmother, and whatever, everybody was doing it in the family.
Right. Exactly. They don't. And it's sad too. And there's some things that have gotten vilified, and they use mention butter. Actually, butter is really not bad for you. And believe me, I use a lot of butter. But it's really truly trying to understand why some narratives are pushed and getting to kind of the bottom of it. Like, we're going through a big thing here in the States where pharmaceuticals are pushed all the time, and natural holistic medicine has been really like vilified, and it's been vilified since the early 1900s. And I think it's Callie Means and Casey Means. They've done a really great study and kind of an awareness campaign on that, along with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., RFK, and a bunch of others as well. But it's really, it's time for us to really kind of take our control of our health and our minds back, and understand there are experts out there, but our experts only know so much. And it's okay to question with curiosity, and really be like, just tell me a little more about why. Like, my doctor who I went to for my knee, great guy. He fixed my daughter really did she tore her ACL in half. Not really weird. Not many people do that, but she literally tore it in half, and did a great, got her back healthy, and she's playing lacrosse again and all that good stuff. But when I came in with my knee, on my meniscus tear, he's like, well, surgery. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Do I really want to have surgery? So I did some research and said, you know what? The kind of tear I have, it's just a tear. It's not a bucket tear. It's not anything what I'm dealing with really is a really bad bone bruise. I'm not ready for surgery, but he was ready to put me under the knife. And I'm like,
Wow.
no,
Yeah,
not,
they were ready to do
yeah.
that.
And I'm like,
Like,
because unfortunately, he's paid more if he has surgery. Now, eventually I might have to have surgery. I'm not saying that I'm not going to have surgery, but I opted for, you know what? I'm pretty healthy. So, and I'm pretty strong. So let me go through the PT route, and let me do a few other alternative approaches to see, can I get my leg healthy again and running again without having to go underneath the knife? Like, that's not the first.
mhm,
I think we need to stop and ask ourselves, is that really the
the
solution
final.
that I need? And you might come
Yeah.
back around and be like, you know what, that is the solution. Need to go have surgery, totally fine. Or I need to have that pill, or I need to do that. But so many of these pills lead to other problems. And now you're just putting pill after pill after pill after pill.
Oh
We
yeah.
lost my husband's mother last year because somebody left her on a heart medication that killed her kidneys. So it's like,
Gosh.
We have to stop. We've got to stop. Not just, it's okay to question with curiosity. We have to do that. Question with curiosity and do your homework.
Yes, absolutely. It's worth exploring before to go to the most drastic solution that you have on the table.
It
That's
is.
so true. And I know because of one medication that I took to, care for my chronic pain, I got a huge 3 years of flare-ups, which
Yeah, that's
had
right. We talked about that. Yeah.
nothing to do with my initial problem. And it's just like, why they gave me those medications when I did not even need them.
Yeah.
Or at least I could have explored all the options before to go there. They don't care. They just, as you said, sometimes if you have bad doctors, I also feel sometimes for them. I understand that they go into medicine, and
Yep.
then what happens is like they get like so many years of training, which is also extenuating for them, and then they are frustrated. I just recently talked with one, and he was like, "This is the system. I don't like it, but if you need something to prescribe you, good. Otherwise, we can close the call here." It was online. And I'm like, "What?" Because we are not paid. We are only paid for like one specific thing that you need, and you have no option to really choose before. There's like specific options,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah. And that's a
So
failure in our system. And that's interesting that you're seeing that where you are, because we see that here in the States as well too.
yes, yes, they've started with this online. I think after the pandemic, during and after, they're
Hmm.
increasing. They have these online systems, so you can actually get medications or whatever you need. But it's so weird because my issues do not lie black or white. They are
Right.
like in the middle. But you cannot choose anything in the middle. It's just like one way. So I guess this is what the insurance is paying, and that's it. If you need something
Okay.
else,
Yeah. No, you've got your, and that's the benefit of, and it sucks because you want to be able to rely on and I agree with you. I feel for a lot of these doctors and folks out there because that's their training and they've not gone, some of them have chosen to question their training and look for other options. And I admire them for doing that. But I do know there are a lot of that just kind of follow the line. We see that in every industry, honestly. See that in the financial services
mhm,
industry that I'm in. So like, it's just, it really does become and it's for good or bad. Some people may be like, well, why do I have to figure this out? That's why I hire experts, right? But you need to figure this out because the only person who cares more about you is, well, nobody. You're the only one who cares really about you. Maybe your family, maybe your spouse, but honestly, you are the expert in you. You know what you're feeling, you know what's going on in you, and listen to your gut and move forward and make sure that you are really, like I said, question with curiosity. And if you don't like something, put a pause. I always tell people, like on the financial side, of like, you know what, before you go out and buy something that is going to put you in a financial crunch, but you're kind of like, oh, I gotta have it, right? Go home and sleep on it first. Before you pull that trigger, go home and sleep on it because a lot of magic happens in 24 hours where you kind of go back and you take a look and be like, really, I didn't know it. Because how many times have you bought something and then you go home and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I spend that money? Why did I do
yeah,
that? And you're kicking yourself. So instead of kicking yourself, just sit there and say, okay, you know what? Don't, oh gosh, and there's so many people out there, y'all. It is a program on this whole marketing thing. Is I gotta get you now because they know that if you walk away, chances of you coming back are very, very nil. So they're going to do this FOMO thing. They're going to push on that button of yours to be like, I gotta get it. Instead, you need to really kind of sit there and say, like, well, do I really need it? Is this really something that's going to, and you need to do that not just when you're spending money, but when you're working on your health. Like I did, I went home and I,
yeah,
I had signed up for the surgery. Then I went home and I slept on it and went, yeah, I don't want to have surgery. What, like, and I did a lot of research. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So I called and canceled the next day. And it just, you will benefit so much more by putting some space between you and
yeah.
between the time of the decision and when you finalize and you pull the trigger on the decision.
Yeah, that happened to me the last time they gave me the last topical medication. It was like very small cream, but it was small because it was like a concentration of antibiotics and cortisone. And
Oh,
I got the medication. I went home and then I look at it. And meanwhile, I was doing my research, but I kept believing the doctors that, you know, because I was trusting them. I was feeling, just lonely in these decisions. So I was
yeah.
trusting them having more information than me. But then I look at it, I still have it, never opened. I look at it and I'm like, I think I'm doing it my way. And eventually my way worked. And
Yeah.
I'm fine now. It took like time, more time probably, but even with their way, it was just going worse and worse and worse. So there was no solution with them. It's
Right.
crazy.
And that's the hard part. Like you could have been just like, let me try my way for a while. If that doesn't work, then I'll try this. And you're right.
Try
I
back,
mean, it is,
yeah.
yeah, it's like, I don't want to vilify because there's so many great doctors out there. There's so many great information, and I think they're really wanting to do the right thing. But I also do think that, um, sometimes it's that quick solution because they don't have so much time with you. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, they're not trained to look at the body as a whole. A lot of them get into like these very, very specific areas, these lanes, and they know that lane and they know it really, really, really well. But it's, and I don't know why. I'm sure doctors could say this. I'm just seeing this as a layperson, as a consumer, going, why didn't you think about this? Why didn't you look at the body connection and not just focus on this one spot? And I think that
Yes.
unfortunately is now being really pushed to us as the consumers to do that for ourselves. And unfortunately, just
True.
what I've learned more and more about the medical community, it is really just that's how they're taught. And I don't know, I just then therein lies a problem. They need to be taught differently if we're going to rely on them as
Yes.
experts.
True. True.
But
So we've talked a little
anyway,
bit on how that's what it is, right? You just have to work around the obstacle.
yeah, again, it's yeah, exactly. It's work and taking self responsibility for your life. Like, just it's your life. Be responsible for it.
True, true. So we've talked a little bit about how you started sport as an adult, basically,
Yeah.
following up with the whole family. That's pretty nice, I would say, to find something because sometimes adults have also this problem. Like if you have kids and like, yeah, like when am I going? Like I don't know if in the United States it's like that. In many gyms in Europe, they actually have some place where you can leave your kids and go to the
Hmm.
gym,
Yep.
which is really cool. But I also understand like not everywhere could be like this and not all gyms have it as well. So it's
Yeah.
pretty hard. And you found one activity, so obstacle race, which could be done. Of course, they have to be a little bit grown up, I would
Yeah.
say. I don't know what's the age, the minimum age. But it's
But
good that
they've
you.
got little races. They've got kids races as well too, which is how my kids
Ah,
started as well
really?
too. Hmm. Yeah.
And
It
then
was
it's
adorable.
perfect. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah, but you bring up something, and this is kind of like when I had kids when I was in my early mid 30s, so a little bit later in life. And it was finding like I remember reading this book called Work Life Balance, and I'm like, there, okay, there's now we really know there's not really work life balance. It's more like work life integration. But yet, and if I remember the title or the book cover correctly, it had like this teeter totter, which I think is really apropos because it's really not you're not like trying to balance them or juggle them together. It's more when one thing you're focused on one thing, one thing's gonna be down and you're gonna have more attention to another thing. When another thing, you're gonna kind of balance it back and forth like that. Um, but really, your life goes in phases. Like again, when my kids were really, really young, I would get up really early in the morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I would do my workout while they were still sleeping.
Wow.
So it's really, and then when they started playing, kind of like we could put them in Taekwondo when they were like little and they could go to like where we lived, the recreation center had a really great kids program. So we could do all of our stuff. put them in the kids program, and then my husband and I could go do our workouts and come pick them up. And then they went into travel sports, and I traveled a lot for work. So it was finding the time either during their sports or during my work travel or whatever to integrate. So, and now of course they're gone and I can do whatever I want whenever I want, but I still work. So it's still trying to balance that. So it's about integrating. And I talk with folks, the folks I work with from a health client's perspective, about planning, because that's the bigger thing is, well, it's a part of the big thing. One, it's finding what you like to do, whether it's running or biking or working out or like whatever. What is your thing that you like to do? And then finding a way to plan it, put it into your planner, put it into whatever it is your life is, and be able to make the commitment and understanding it's not going to be ideal. Was getting up at 4:30 in the morning ideal? No, it sucked, but I did it. There were times when the kids were, their practice was like an hour and a half, and I really enjoy trail running. So I would drop them off, get them settled, and then go boogie my way over to the trail, go run for about 40 minutes, and then come back and pick them up. Most of the time I was on time. There was every once in a while I was a little late, which I got yelled at by my kids, but for the most part, I was there. So, or there's many times I just walked the field. I would just walk around the field that they were practicing on. So, understanding that maybe you're not going to have the ideal workout, but you can still get something in. You can still do something healthy for yourself than just sit in your car and not do anything. And
Yeah.
maybe every once in a
And
while,
wait.
and wait. There's always something you can be doing. You just have to figure out how to plan it into your day, and just give yourself some grace that some things are going to work, some things are not, and you have to keep kind of playing with it to figure out what's the best way for you to be able to integrate it.
Yes. What's then? So, because now your kids are pretty, I mean, they're grown up, you told me, right? 19 and
Yeah,
21.
1921.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what's your plan for the future? Like, is there something that you could not do before and that you may be planning to do right now?
Well, yes, my husband and I are very adventurous in that respect. So there's a couple races that we want to do. We want to do a Spartan Ultra, which is a all day event. Although our kids want to do it with us, which is really, I look at them like, are you sure? You don't know what you're signing up for. So we want to do that. We want to go travel and do some of these races. We've done a lot of them right out our backyard here in Dallas, Texas. But we there's also a couple other bigger races. Like there's one called 29029, which is like climbing what is in essence Mount Everest. So we got to figure that one out.
What? Okay.
Yeah, I know. And then my big one is my goal is to raft the Grand Canyon. I've always wanted to raft the Grand Canyon. So there's like lots of big things that we want to do, like bigger adventures now that our kids are older. And some of them we'll bring them with us, like the rafting the Grand Canyon. We're going to bring our kids with us. The other ones is just more challenges that my husband and I want to do and take on. And I do it. We do it because your health is so really important to you, and moving your body is so very important. And again, it's that carrot out there, that event that keeps us going forward. So we'll keep signing up for these things because that works for us. But those are some of the big things that we have kind of on the future radar here in the next 5 years. Well, next year is going to be the ultra for sure. The rest of it, we're still trying to figure out. But we'll bring our kids with us where they can. Our daughter plays lacrosse for college now. So we'll see how that works. But yeah, where they want to come with us, we'll invite them. But there's still going to be some things that, like I say, I enjoy doing them with my husband. So they're just our weekends, and then make a kind of a weekend out of it.
That's pretty cool. Really, really, I like it. It's, the goals of life, making sure you can integrate all those things together. Because I hear so many people that are like, oh my God, after I had kids, I had no life. And this is very, I think, not true. And sometimes
No.
it's just because they don't want to. And then they spread this idea that you're not gonna make anything of your life after that. And I think it's not true. Like, I don't know
Oh,
for sure because I'm not into the experience, but I,
you
I
know,
cannot believe it.
oh no, and don't believe it. It's so not true. I think the biggest shift for people if I were to just this is Kelly's personal opinion, nothing else. But what I think happens, and I can see this because, my husband and I were married for 9 years before our son came along. And so we had a lot of stuff that we did just the two of us. And there really is an adjustment when you bring another life into your life. And for the last 21 years, and plus now it'll be going for the next 5 years as we go through college and stuff like that, our life has revolved around the kids. And, I think it's coming to that understanding that were we able to do a lot of things that we wanted to do that we were able to do before kids? No, we weren't. I'm like, kids are expensive. And you've got to make sure, the kids are taken care of and, and they're either integrated with you or, you just can't leave them all the time. So I think it's that mental shift to understand, okay, wait a minute, I do have someone else I am responsible for, and that is part of my life. And I have wanted them to, I brought them into my life, and, we went through some fertility issues. So like it was, we were really, I want to say we had to work hard at having kids. That's really kind of funny if you think about it, but we had to do some things. but I think you have to have that mental shift that my life, yes, maybe it's not my life. It's not my husband in my life anymore. It's our life with the kids. And now, it's now back to my husband and I, and this is our first year being, without the kids at home. So, we're still kind of figuring out, oh, what do we do this weekend? Now we're kind of like, now what do we do?
We
So
have
there's
free
a little
time.
bit of, yeah, exactly. There is definitely a little bit of that going on as well too. And that's why I'm like, make sure you've got a good relationship with your spouse. He's my best friend, and that's always a good thing to have. But I think it's more of, I think some people like, I miss my life. And I miss that being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want kind of thing. And I get that, but it's also, there's something very beautiful about raising children. There's something very beautiful about having that whole family integration. And there are, again, like a race, there's going to be days that you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck did I sign up for? You're not going to walk away from days like that. I mean, you'll get through days like that, but there are going to be days like that.
Of course.
But then you're going to step back and, you're going to get to where I am, where every once in a while, these feeds come up on my Facebook thing. And there are these, when my little munchkins were, and I'm like, wow, I kind of miss that. I kind of miss that time as well, too. I love the time now. So all I can tell people is, take a step back and really just be present, embrace what you've got going on, because it will go by way too fast. And understand that life comes in phases, and not each phase is going to be the same. There's going to be some really beautiful things about each phase, but it's going to be different.
Yeah, true. Kelly, it was a pleasure having you here today. We discussed so many things that I've learned a lot, actually, and I recommend your book to our listeners because it's definitely something that can help you not only in choosing your sport, going through the experience, but also to see sport has one of the challenges, and you can also learn from it, integrate it into your life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Eleanor. It was really great spending time with you.
Thank you.